Okay. Good morning. It is April 21st. I am coming to you from my office space on this lovely April 21st afternoon. I'll wait a few seconds for a few people to show up, and then we will get started. So I see at least one person's here, so welcome. Um, I'm just going to be going over what we're going to do today. Hey, Katana, welcome. I noticed a few of you guys started on your project from last week, the stories, and those are turning out pretty well. I was enjoying reading yours, Hunter's and Norell's. All seem to be coming along pretty nicely, so I was pleased with that. Um, what I'm going to be going over today. Hey, Norell, I liked your story as well. I thought it was pretty interesting. If you are okay with it, I'll share your guys' stories so everybody can experience them, if that's okay. Hey, Nathaniel, how are you? So let me know, Katana and Norel, if you think it's okay for everybody else in your class to read through your stories, and I'll make those available to everybody if so. If not, that's okay. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to well, I'm actually going to be going over that, Katana. That's a good question. So, I made two new assignments. They're both pretty short, um, and I'm going to go over how to do those real quick. Yeah, there's an assignment from last week, Nathaniel. Basically, here I'll show it on my screen. It is a second person story, and what you do is you. Oh, that's not the right one. Did I click the right one? Yeah, that's it. Second person story. You create like a second person story, kind of like a choose your own adventure. So if you click on the second person story link, it gives you the instructions of how to do it. And then there is a list of just topics. There's a copy of one that's already done for you that you can read through. And then there's a template that you can use to make your own. And a few students already started theirs. I read through Norell's, I read through Katana's, and Hunter started one. So his isn't finished, but he did start on it. So I've read through what he has so far. What I'm holding in my hand, yeah, it's a microphone. I'm using my desktop, and it doesn't have a built-in microphone, so I had to plug this big bulky thing into it. But Nick, make sure you get started on your second person story as well, if you wouldn't mind. So I'm going to be going over two new things. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and Nathaniel, remember, just kind of go like 20 minutes a day. Don't get overwhelmed by however much you still have to do. Just so long as you're working, don't feel like if you're behind, it's the end of the world and you have to do everything at once. Like, take your time and don't, like, destroy yourself. Um, so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to go over the two new things we're going to do. One is a speed read challenge, and the other one is a create your own personality quiz. So the first one, the speed read challenge, is pretty self-explanatory. All you do is you click on the speed read challenge, you click on the fluency packet. It has a list of, I think, like 14 stories or something, and you read any one of those stories that you think is interesting. You time how fast you read it. Then you listen to it by clicking the blue button right there, and it will actually read the story to you. And then after you've heard the story read to you, you read it again, and you record those speeds. Hopefully the second time's faster than the first time. And the second link right here, so the first time you've read it, the second time you've read it, and then you wait like a day or two, and you read it one more time, and then you time that speed. And we were going to do this once a week for the next 6 weeks. So just a way to keep your reading up while you're stuck in seclusion at home. In school, you guys read pretty much every day. This is just a way to make sure you're able to still read. Not all at once. So the idea is, Katana, you would read, say, one story 1 week, and there are I think 14 stories, so you wouldn't read them all. You would only read 6 total. So if the first week you were reading, say, the Muhammad Ali one, that's the only one you read that week, and you read it 3 times. You read it once, just as soon as you pick it up. You read it a second time after you listen to it, and then you wait a few days and read it again. They're all really short. I think they're like a page long. They're like on 2 pages, but that's only because they don't start on the first page. And you don't have to do the questions that follow them. It's just a way to make sure you guys are still reading. And there's only 14. Yeah, there's 14. So you only do 6 of those. So whichever one you think's the most interesting. There's one on poetry. There's a fable. There's more than 14. I was wrong. There's like 40 of them. So hopefully one of those you find interesting. So, and that's just a way to make sure you guys are still reading and keeping up with your fluency, which is just how fast you read and how clear you read, which most of you guys are pretty good at. So I'll exit out of that and go over the more interesting thing you guys are going to do. So the more interesting one, the one at least I think is more interesting, if you go to the classwork, okay, it's right here. It's create your own personality quiz. Right now it's a draft, so you can't see it, but I will assign it, and then everyone can see it. Right there. Okay, so it should be showing up right now. Hey, what's up, Hunter? What the create your own personality create your own personality test is you get to create your own personality test. So there's 2 things. First, there's an example, which is a really short article, and then the second thing is a graphic organizer that I made, like a template similar to the second person story template, where you can just fill it out, and that lets you create your personality test. So the example is from a Scope magazine, so I'll just go over that real quick with you. It's a pretty short article. If you click on the text-to-speech button, it will actually read to you, but it kind of reads it in this very robotic way, so you might be better off reading it on your own. But if you want to have it read to you, you can. You can also click the Open Magazine view, which will change it to more like this, which you might find like an easier way to read the story, so it's kind of like you're reading an actual magazine instead of just off the computer. But basically what it does is it's a short personality test that determines what you are, like personality-wise. If you're a parrot, if you're an eagle, if you're an owl, or I think there's one more, a dove, right? So what you do is you just answer these questions right here. So there's these rows of adjectives, and you pick which adjectives fit you. Right? So like if you think you're assertive, you put a check there. If you think you're social, you put a check there. If you think you're cooperative, you put a check there. Now, since you don't have the magazine to put checks on, what you could just do is take a sheet of paper, write A, B, C, D down, and then put the number of A's that you would collect, the number of B's that you think represent you, the number of C's that you think represent you, and the number of D's that represent you. And then that is whichever one you would correspond to. What if you don't have a computer? Well, you're on a computer right now, aren't you? I was just reading a couple people's questions real quick. I can't log into my school account for the slides, so how do I share it with you? You know what, Hunter, I actually looked at your story so far. So like I'm even if you don't share it to me, I can still see it because I saw how much you had done. So it's fine as long as you're working on it. It's okay. And then Nico, what if you don't have a computer because okay. So on your phone or tablet, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. So well, for this one, actually, like, answering which one you would be wouldn't be that bad because you're just keeping track of whether A, B, C, or D fits you, and then you would go down to whichever one that corresponds to, so you can still read the test, It'll just be harder to make it. I guess you could make it on paper if you wanted to. Just instead of using the template I made, you could kind of make a paper template. It might take you a little bit longer, but you could do that. And then when you turn in the packets, you could just turn that in with the packets. I guess that would be the best way to do that. But, okay. So, yeah, just kind of do it on paper, I guess. Just might take you a little bit longer. I didn't think about that, so that's a good point to bring up, Nick. But anyway, so when you're taking this quiz, whichever one you think you are the most of, you put, so A, B, C, or D. You scroll down. If you're mostly A's, you're eagle, B's parrot, C, dove, D, owl. Then what you do is scroll down a little bit. Hey, Tristan. And then you see how they describe the eagle, how they describe the parrot, how they describe the owl, and how they describe the dove. So, like, for instance, if you're an owl, they're saying that you're careful, thorough, and you're always putting your mind to work. Whereas if you're more of a parrot, you're the life of the party, and you can always get a crowd going. That's a good question. When's it due? All the assignments, I didn't give a due date. It's kind of just like it's due when you get it done. So as long as you're working 20 minutes a day, if you're working hard on the second person story and you don't get to this for another week, that's fine. If you think this is, say, like someone like Nick didn't get to the second person story, but he wants to do this instead, that's fine too. She looks like, ow, that's Michelle Obama. That's messed up, making fun of her. So yeah, you just read what, whichever one that corresponds to you. So if you picked more of the B answers and you decided that you're a parrot, you just kind of read what it gives you, and see if that really does correspond with you. And there are quizzes like this you can take on the internet. It will be like, what sort of Star Wars character are you? What character from Stranger Things are you most like? Just what character from Shrek, Star Trek, whatever. Like, there's all sorts of those. And the assignment isn't so much reading this. This is kind of just like the example. The activity is actually you get to make your own. So when you click the graphic organizer tab, you get something that opens up like this, kind of similar to the second person graphic organizer we made. And what you're going to do is decide on your own topic. So instead of being what type of animal are you, it could be something like, what character from Star Wars are you most like? Or what monster are you most like? If you're into monster movies, you could do like Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and a mummy. If you're doing Star Wars, you could do like a Jedi, a Sith, or a Stormtrooper. If you're doing what else is popular now? Stranger Things. I've never watched it, so like you could pick 3 characters from Stranger Things, I guess. I have a feeling like most of the things you guys are into I haven't seen before, so you could kind of just go with that, and I'll look it up online to figure out how it corresponds. But so basically what you would do, you would go to the insert title here part, and that would be where you would pick what the topic of your quiz is. So what type of monster are you, right? And then put a question mark there. Over here, put your name. So I would just write like student A. Okay, so maybe I was going a little too quick there, Nick. All right, so what you're going to do, you're going to make your own test, right? The article that I was going over is just kind of like an example, right? So you read through this to get an idea of how one of these tests work. And then you pick your own, something that interests you. So if you were interested in monsters, your quiz would be, what type of monster are you? If you're interested in Stranger Things, what Stranger Things character are you? If you're interested in whatever, you could do that. You could even do a story that we read in class. You could do, which character from the Anne Frank play are you most like? It could be really anything. I'm not a monster. Yeah, you don't have to do monsters. You can do whatever. You could do Transformers. You could do what type of teacher are you? Like, you could do it for subjects like math, English, or history, or science, Spanish, martial arts, gym, principal, or I think I'm out of classes, French, I guess. They teach French in school sometimes. But you pick 3 things, right? Is the idea. So if you want to do teacher, if you want to do monster, if you want to do Stranger Things characters, X-Men, Avengers, Lord of the Rings, you could use mythical beasts like phoenixes and giants and dragons or whatever. You can kind of pick whatever you're into. It could be like video games. What type of video game would you be in? Like first-person shooter, role-playing game, or sports game could be your 3 options, right? Kind of up to you. Just be creative on that. And then what you do once you pick whichever subject you want for your test, you go to the questions, and you have, I think I made 5 for everybody. Yeah, so you make 5 questions, right? And these are kind of broad, similar to back here, how they ask if you're assertive, if you're social, if you're patient, if you're logical, whatever. You come up with 3 questions, and what you're doing with these questions is trying to figure out if someone has a set personality characteristic. So if I was doing, like, say, Star Wars, Stormtroopers, Jedi, and Sith, I'm thinking a Stormtrooper is someone who always follows directions and doesn't think for themselves. So maybe my first question could be something like, do you always follow instructions? Now, the colors correspond to their answers, right? So if they are a yes, they pick green. If they are a no, they pick pink. And if there's sometimes, they pick blue, right? And then you just make sure as you're making the other questions that the green always corresponds to your Stormtrooper, that pink always corresponds to your Sith, and that blue always corresponds to your Jedi. That way, you don't confuse your whoever's taking your quiz, right? So you go to second question. Same thing. You want to know. You want to keep the same theme, so you go to another example. Like you could go for maybe just like how good the person is. Like, would you take advantage of a stranger? And the Stormtrooper would be if ordered to. The Sith would be like if you get something out of it, and the Jedi would be never, right? And you just continue along those lines. But again, you don't necessarily want to do Star Wars creatures. You might want to do monsters. You might want to do characters from Shrek, characters from Stranger Things, whatever you want, right? So whatever your personality quiz is going to be over, once you're done, you just have the people count up however many answers went into each color. So if they mostly had green, then they go to the answer that corresponds to green. If they had mostly pink, the answer that corresponds to that. And if they had mostly blue, the one that corresponds to that. And then all you do is you fill in the you are a with whatever that would be. That you are a whatever, Cyclops, or a mummy, or a Stormtrooper, or whatever you picked, right? So if you were going to be make your thing off of video game characters, whichever video game character corresponds with pink, and then you have whatever you are that corresponds to green, and then whatever you would be if you only had blue, right? So does that make sense? Any questions on that? I know I was talking really fast because, especially with 8th grade, I tend to run over. And I know, I think Mr. Sirianni or Mr. Andrews follows me, so I want to get this all set up before my time's up. So any questions with that? No? Okay. I will take your silence as you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so since we have about 9 minutes left, this is already shared, so you can start on it whenever you want. If you're working on the second person story, finish that first. What if we can't do it? Okay, so like if that's a good question. So if you're in the same boat as Nick or someone who can't get to a computer, you could do this on paper, right? So you could make a paper version of the quiz. The only really tricky part to this would be the where you explain the different parts. So like the example, if you go to what does it mean to be like a dove, you just list like a sentence like they did what it means. So if you were doing like Star Wars, for example, and the person got a stormtrooper, you would explain in a sentence what it means to be a stormtrooper, and then you can list more details underneath, like notable habits, like how the person would behave in general, something like that. If you can't get to the links, it's on Google Classroom, Tristan. So when you go on Google Classroom, it should show up. I just assigned it, but it should show up. Yeah, it shows up in the stream, or if you hit classwork, it shows up. The example shows up as well. You can look at that to get ideas, and then the creative personalities there as well. If you can't get onto the link, Katana, but you want to do this one after you're done with your second person thing, you can do it on paper. Just get a few sheets of paper and recreate the slides that way. That's how I would do it. If this one is too big of a hassle for you to do, like just inability to use the computer, remember the projects are kind of like to take the place of an assignment in the packet. So if you just can't get into the graphic organizer and you think it would be too hard to use it, do it on paper, just don't do this one. Instead, do the second person one, or instead work on the packet. Kind of dealer's choice. My idea is that you work for about 20 minutes a day, so don't stress if you don't get to every single assignment that we put on here. And I know a few people showed up late, so the only other thing that we really went over was the speed read thing. If you click on the speed read challenge, it will bring up some fluency packets. You just pick one of those stories, and there's a list of like something crazy, like 40 of them. They're all a page long. They look longer, but they're really just on 2 pages, so they're only a page. You read each one 3 times, and you record your speed in reading it. So you read it, you listen to it, read it again, wait a day, read again. And then you just end up doing that with a different story each week for the next 6 weeks. And since we won't be back in school, in the classroom, at least this year, this will give you some practice reading out loud for the rest of the year. Yeah, Katana, I saw your question there. I do think it would be hard to do this, the personality thing on paper. So if you can't get into the Google Classroom to do it, I would skip that project and just do the second person one, or the packet, and just let that one go. And that would be fine. Are there any questions on how to do that for anyone who is going to do this project? You could, I don't know what that means. I'm not familiar with your emojis, so Miss Miller is not here. I can't ask her to translate, so you're going to have to type it in question form. But, okay, so we only have a few minutes left, so if you have some other questions, I'll talk you through that. If anyone has questions over the second person story from last week, I can answer those also. I know you showed up late, Hunter, but I did read through what you had so far. I think you had like 2 pages and some pictures, so yours looked like it was turning out well. I read through Darrell's. I was really impressed with that. Katana, I liked yours so far. I think I already put a bunch of comments on yours. Hunter, since you didn't share yours with me, I can't type comments into it, but I can still look at it. So I was able to read, I think, the first 2 pages you had. It is shared with me. Then I can comment on it. When I looked at it last time, I was pretty sure I could just look at it, but I couldn't comment on it. Oops. But look good so far. And Narelle, if you're still on here, you never did say if I could share your story with everybody else or not. I think it would be a shame not to share with everybody. It was pretty good. I got none. Okay, cool. So, I assume by now you guys have gotten the packets. I tried to organize it by weeks, but again, like I'm more concerned that you just work 20 minutes every day than if you get every single thing done. So don't get overwhelmed. I know last week a few people mentioned that they thought there was too much work, and my idea is that you would work for like 20 minutes a day, and I would be happy with that. So, just that. All right. So, and again, if you have some questions. Yes, Narelle, I did see what happens. It was a cool story. I like that you guys all kind of went for like the haunted house thing. You and Katana took it in very different ways, but it was cool. I liked it. It was a lot darker than I expected out of you, Narelle. Like, you always seem so happy and pleasant. I think all of the wrong choices ended up in someone dying. Not very forgiving. So I know Mr. Andrews is going to get on here in a minute, so I will take off. It looks like a minute early. If you have any questions, make sure you send me a message in Google Classrooms, email, whatever, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. And I'll talk to y'all later. See you on Thursday. I am not done and 6 feet away. Okay.